line with us, our buddy Phil Itner, the veteran war correspondent based out of Kyiv, Ukraine, host of the brilliant podcast On the Edge, available wherever fine podcasts are available. You can find him over on Blue Sky at Ittner Philip, ITTNERPHILIP. All the Blue Sky, BSKY.social. And also he's got a video blog over on YouTube under Philip Itner. Phil, welcome back to the program. How are things in Ukraine today?
Yeah, well, happy 2025, I suppose. I mean, it's pretty much kind of a status quo. Over the holidays, we got hit pretty hard. But on the battlefield, some movement in Kursk by the Ukrainian forces. They've launched another assault from a different direction.
It's the part of Russia that they seized, isn't it?
That's right.
Okay.
This is Kursk inside the Russian Federation. This is Ukrainian forces have been there for months, and they're fighting not only Russian troops but troops from North Korea that have been lent by Pyongyang. And so what the Ukraine, and this is an irritant, obviously more than an irritant. This is an embarrassment to Vladimir Putin, that the Ukrainians would be able to bring the war to them on their territory, but they can't seem to be dislodged. And not only are they not being dislodged, but they've launched a second, as I say, thrust from a different direction directly at those, in particular, North Korean troops. And they seem to be making progress there inside the Russian Federation. At the same time, however, down in Donbass, the Russian forces continue to grind forward kilometer after kilometer. But Tom, they're losing 1,000 to around 1,500 troops a day. That's 30 to 45,000 Russian soldiers taken off the battlefield in casualty, so either KIA or so significantly injured they will not be returning to the battlefield and will live with their injuries the rest of their lives. That's, again, 30 to 45,000. That's unsustainable, and they've already crossed the 800,000 casualty mark. That means if you do your arithmetic, sometime around June-ish, if things progress the way they're going, they will cross the 1 million-man casualty mark for the Russian forces. That's devastating, especially when you consider what are they doing it for. And they're just eking forward. They're just, mind you, on the other side, the Ukrainian forces are exhausted. They're undermanned. They are having problems with their command structure and soldiers going even AWOL. Both sides are in this, they're locked in this struggle. And while, you hear words from Kyiv saying, all you guys have to do is leave and we'll stop, we'll stop. But we can't stop as it is. And then on the other side, the Russians can't walk away from this thing because they haven't achieved their main strategic goals and are unlikely to do so anytime soon. Putin also caught in a catch-22 because he has transitioned his country to a war economy footing. He has hundreds of thousands of men mobilized, and he is suffering badly with his economy, not due in no small part for the sanctions, but also because he is on this war economy footing. So what do? Do you demobilize all these hundreds of thousands of traumatized men and send them back to their villages and towns where the economy is stagnant? Because if you stop it being a war economy, where some 25% of the economy is in building tanks and shells, and there's going to have to be a transition back, those hundreds of thousands of men who are trained in combat, they go back to their hometowns and there's no work to be done.
Yeah, we had a couple of pretty severe
Putin's in a
recessions
tough
here after
spot.
World War II for that very reason. That wartime economies are basically stimulative.
That's right, but it's a sugar high.
Exactly.
And so he's also caught with that. The whole thing is an absolute mess, Tom. And I, don't know how there's going to be a resolution. I do believe in what President Zelensky has been saying recently, in that this year might be a year where we could maybe find a way to a ceasefire, but a permanent, lasting peace I don't know how it's going to get done, and it certainly isn't going to be as easy as the incoming administration seems to think it will be. This is a complex situation with no easy answers, and all kinds of reasons why both sides of the conflict are kind of caught in the conflict. It's going to be a rough year.
Yeah, I get it. Big picture question for you, Phil.
Sure.
Putin, the world, shall we say, since World War II, and arguably before that, but I mean the rebooted League of Nations, the United Nations, kind of codified this as international law, has operated under a set of principles that the foundation of which is that one nation does not absorb another nation by force. And Russia obviously violated that when they invaded Ukraine. China is threatening to violate that with Taiwan, and arguably violated that with Tibet some time ago. The United States has always stood for that rule of law, essentially that international rule of law, that taking another country by force is a crime that should never even be considered or discussed by a real power in the world. I mean, maybe some little third world country wants to have a border dispute, or Eritrea and Ethiopia or something like that. But major players in the world just never would talk about this unless they were just abandoning democracy altogether. And now we've got Donald Trump saying that he would not rule out using force to seize Greenland or Panama. He, by the way, apparently owes millions of dollars in fines and back taxes to the government of Panama for his failed Trump hotel in Panama. And he is mentioned some 3,000 times, apparently, in the Panama Papers, or reportedly. There's a piece about this in Newsweek. So there may be a secondary agenda here, or maybe he's just trying to distract people from the fact that right now Republicans in Congress are working very hard to come up with a bill for another $1 trillion tax break for billionaires. But I'm curious your thoughts on this sudden. I'm just shocked that more American politicians and the news media in America are not shocked by the fact that an incoming president would say we're no longer going to respect the rule of law internationally.
Well, Tom, I know that people get on me when I say this, but this is yet another reason why I firmly believe that Donald Trump is compromised and is in some way or another working in the interests of Vladimir Putin. Yeah. And I know that's controversial because obviously it's easily dismissed with the whole Russia, and the Mueller report being so deeply flawed as it was. He doesn't have to necessarily support the Kremlin. He can be a disruptor in his own right and destroy from inside and break rules and create chaos and friction and everything that he's doing internally within the United States in breaking all these traditions and norms and threatening our neighbors to the north, which we have absolutely no beef with. The idea of absconding with Greenland is almost farcical, but this is exactly what invading Mexico. This is exactly what Vladimir Putin wants. And I am afraid that sometime during this year, or sometime during the first 2 years of his administration, and let's hope the midterms go differently, that there will be a crucial point in this conflict. And while yes, there's all sorts of things that are going to happen with Trump and Putin and Zelensky, and there's going to be a lot of things going on with the Europeans as well. But when push comes to shove, when that crisis point comes in this war, I am definitely afraid that he will side with Vladimir Putin when it comes to this conflict. But you're asking me to talk about big picture. That's my big picture concern about the Trump administration.
I think
is a disruptor.
Yeah, I think I believe that the reason Trump is saying I will consider using force to go after Panama and Greenland, and has previously suggested invading Mexico without Mexico's permission, is that he is trying to legitimize what Putin has done in Ukraine. Oh, if the United States would consider doing it.
Yeah. No, it will give, and already you see it actually coming out of the foreign ministry and certain areas of Russian state media, which of course is not independent. It does the bidding of the Kremlin. Right. And you already see that narrative being put forward, that if these things, then how can he balk at us taking back what they see as their colony, and rightfully so. It's the whole thing is, I mean, buckle in. This is going to be a difficult year. The war itself is a mess. I have said it before, I'll say it again. The Russians can't win here unless they take Odessa and Kyiv. And right now, they just simply don't have the capacity to do that. Right. They need Odessa to control the Black Sea, and they need Kyiv to install a puppet government that's friendly to Moscow. Yeah. And I don't see that happening anytime soon. This thing is a real morass.
So and I have 1 minute to a hard break here.
Sure.
You have a lot of good connections inside the Ukrainian government. What are they expecting from Trump?
They're hoping that his ego will work in their favor. That he will try to push around Vladimir Putin, and that that'll create some kind of these clash of these egos. They're not willing to. They're desperately optimistic about it because they have to be. Yeah. But it's obviously the erratic nature of Trump has everybody here very nervous about what's going to happen. They're hoping for the Europeans to step up, and frankly, we are starting to see moves within the European Union and the NATO members in Europe starting to say we can't rely on America anymore. We have to go our own way. It's divide and conquer, another thing that Putin would love to see.
Yeah, I get it. Phil Ittner, check out his podcast On the Edge, available wherever fine podcasts are found. Also on Blue Sky, Ittner Philip, Ittner Philip. Phil, always great talking with you. Thank you so much for the update.
Take care, Tom.
Yep, stay safe. We'll be back on the other side of the break. Astonishing Trump meddling with the Supreme Court. Stick around.